Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by Ashlyn Sullivan, Flyers pre and post game live host. And Ashlyn, last game for the Flyers did not lack headlines, storylines, all of it. Joel Farabee and Travis Sanheim were benched for the whole second period. Tortorella puts them back in the third. And then in the waning moments of the game, Tony DeAngelo spears Corey Perry below the belt and kind of a melee breaks loose. You know, it's funny. They're not playing meaningful games, but it doesn't mean they're not actually entertaining right now for maybe bad reasons, but also for some good ones. But let's start off with Joel Farabee and Travis Sanheim. How do you feel like John Tortorella is handling this? Do you agree with it? And where do they need to go from here?
Yeah, I think Torts has no choice. And what stood out to me the most in yesterday's loss to the Lightning was I've never in my time here this season, I've never seen Torts basically speechless. And that's the vibe I got in his post-game press conference, being asked, why did you bench them? Are you seeing enough from them? What do you want to see from him? And he's just left being like, I've done all I can. I've disciplined these guys multiple times. We're not seeing the results. What's the most concerning is these are two players that are making up $11 million of your cap space next season. And you're just not seeing the play progress for the dollar amount that these guys are making. He's put so much, I don't want to even say pressure. He hasn't really asked that much of them. Just play up to the caliber of the player you're supposed to be. And then you go see them, make mistakes that they shouldn't be making at this point in the season. Joel Farabee, 2 penalties in the first period. Travis Sanheim benched a couple of games ago and commits a penalty yesterday. He has no choice. But I was surprised, and Scott Hartnell said this as well, when they were benched in the second period, we didn't think they'd be coming back. So I don't know if that was a case of you had no choice because you just need players at this point. They were going with basically 9 forwards in the second period. That's the vibe I got. I think if it was up to Torts, he probably would bench them the entire game, but it seems like he doesn't have that option at this point in the season.
I agree. That was the vibe I got as well. If the circumstances were different, I think he would have sat them for the entire game, the rest of the way. But they were so shorthanded, and it would be a real bold move to sit those two players when you're on a road trip and the games aren't getting easier coming up. You really need players to be out there and trying to make an impact, especially those two guys. Ashlyn, I thought it was just puzzling a little bit for me with Farabee because I thought he played one of his best games in a while. The previous game on Sunday against the Red Wings, he was really active. Tortorella even said he could have had 2 or 3 goals. He didn't score a goal, but he just looked a lot more like himself. And then he assists Morgan Frost's goal to open the game. So I felt like he's starting to come along offensively. And I understand the penalties are bad and you can't have him against a team like Tampa, but then I just felt like you thwarted all the momentum he had built up offensively where you think he's maybe starting to come along. That one I just didn't understand. I just felt like he was starting to make some strides here offensively, and I just feel like the momentum's gone when you sit him for a full period.
That's a great point. And you get, when you look at Joel Farabee, and for most likely it's such a confidence, it's such a mental thing right now. And you did feel it brewing, and to then have to sit the whole second period, you would imagine in Joel Farabee's sake, that confidence is now shot again. So yeah, it's a tricky situation there. I get the penalty thing. I get the reason for sitting. Joel Farabee to me just looks like a guy who is putting 110% into just scoring a goal or making something happen. It's been 23 straight games without a goal. And for Joel Farabee, you want to end this season at least getting a couple to make yourself feel better, to make everyone feel better. I see both sides. I think the Sanheim thing's a no-brainer. The Joel Farabee one is puzzling, but I just feel like there's no right answer there because I see the coach's standpoint and I see Farabee's like, I got to play. I got to get a goal. And I can't do that if I'm not out there.
Yeah. And perhaps this is player and coach learning one another still. Travis Sanheim, we talked to him about 4 days after he got benched in Calgary when the team got back home from that road trip. And he said there wasn't much communication from Tortorella or the coaching staff for why he got benched. He was pretty perplexed and puzzled, and he said he didn't appreciate it being in Calgary. And I asked him, I said, well, does that mean you have to seek out the coach, get the message from him, say, hey, what's going on? Like, why am I not playing? What do you want more from me? And he said, perhaps that's something I have to do in the future. I wonder if he'll do it here on this road trip, maybe seek a one-on-one with the coach and ask him what's up. Because I just can't agree with the benching without talking about it. Like, it just, to me, I don't think a player is going to be in the right frame of mind if he has no idea why he's being reprimanded
right
from the coach. And if that's Tortorella's old school way of saying, come see me, let's talk, let's have some confrontation or some good conversation, then that's his way. But young players and guys that are, kind of up and down confidence wise, they might not do it themselves to go out and seek the coach. But something needs to change there, because it clearly didn't work the previous time with Farabee and Sanheim. They were, they got benched again. And I think there needs to be something that changes. And I'm with you, Ashlyn. I was surprised because Tortorella looked like he was at a loss the other night on Postgame Live.
But I don't fault Torts for not seeking out the player, and the coach shouldn't feel sorry for them. The play speaks for itself. And if you're an adult and you're an NHL hockey player making this much money, in my mind, you should go seek out the coach. And if you truly want to get better and you truly want to help the team, then you got to overcome the awkwardness of sitting down with your coach. I mean, Scott Hartnell talks about it all the time, how often he got benched by Torts, and it would be a text message. Hey, you're not playing. Yeah. And it was up to him to ask why. The coach gave you the information. You're not playing. If you want to figure out why, that's on you.
And I believe I heard Scott Hartnell said he had gone into his office at times to say, hey, what's up? And he said sometimes it was confrontational, but at least they got their points across and they felt like they grew from it. And Travis Sanheim, same thing. He said he got a text message in Calgary the morning of the game.
It's brutal.
Playing.
I mean, I feel for them. That's
right?
brutal.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, perhaps these are growing pains in year one of a coach and a player and the relationship there. I don't want to jump to rash decisions where I'm not thinking these guys are a part of the future. I still think Farabee and Sanheim are important parts. Perhaps Farabee's got a longer leash because he's only 22. Mm-hmm. Sanheim, I believe, is 26 now. And I think the Flyers are really trying to think whether he's definitely a part of this, a foundation piece. The contract says he is, but that doesn't always mean long-time job security. But definitely two things to keep an eye on, Ashlyn, I would say, as this road trip continues.
Yeah, these last 18 games, you wanted to have progression of those two guys, because when you just look at the number, it's like, well, what are you supposed to do when those guys make up so much of your cap? And I think that's why the magnifying glass is on Sanheim. It's a much shorter leash. The age is there. And if you decide in these next 18 games he's not, then you got to figure that out with that contract situation, because that leashes this team so badly. Whereas Joel Farabee has the injury thing. And I think that has been so the storyline of his year. So I think he does have a longer leash, one, because of the age, and two, because of the recovery of this season. I think you got to give Joel Farabee another year. You got to give him an entire off season to work on this. If we're at this point next year, different story, obviously. But I think for Joel Farabee, you have to at least give him the one true off season to see if this can progress.
Could not agree more. And Sanheim's coming off a really good season and expectations. And there's no real reason why he shouldn't be playing better. I'm sure he would agree with that too. He has talked about getting his confidence back and playing the way he should be playing. Mm-hmm. Flyers Talk is brought to you by Great Railing. Stop into Great Railing for the highest quality and lowest prices on all your railing, decking, and fencing needs. Okay, Ashlyn, I am sure Scott Hartnell has seen some things in his day playing this game, whether it be questionable decisions from the opponent. We've known Brad Marchand has been known to lick a player from time to time. You see all crazy things on the ice when it gets heated. Mm-hmm. What was his reaction when he saw Tony DeAngelo take the stick and spear Corey Perry where no one wants to be speared?
Yeah, my favorite was we missed it because we were walking down for post game. We always miss like the most important aspects of the game, and those 20 seconds walking from the second to first floor. It's like a joke that we'll miss a goal when it's something monumental in the game. So we walk up and all we see is 12 players on Tony DeAngelo. We're like, oh my gosh, what happened? He must have said something again. Well, then we saw the replay and we were about to go live, and Scott and all of us struggled to describe what happened because we didn't want to say anything inappropriate for television. So we were trying to find the correct adjective, and we were told to say midsection, but we didn't think that really described what happened. So we were having trouble with the adjective there. But yeah, I mean, Scott Hartnell said this is egregious. This is something, and he understood to a sense of when a guy is getting under your skin the entire game. There's times where a flip switches, you can't describe it. You go crazy for like 20 seconds, and you recoup and you go, my gosh, why did I do that? He predicted that would be Tony DeAngelo later that night of why did I do that? But in the moment, you can't think, you can't help yourself. But Scott and Al immediately said, oh, he'll be suspended and this will really hit his pocketbook, which it has.
It has indeed. It came out this afternoon from the NHL Department of Player Safety. He's suspended 2 games for that spearing. Ashlyn, you asked the question to me. You're like, what was the fine? I was like, you know what's funny? I didn't even read the full email. The fine was over $54,000. So not a cheap play by any means. It may be a cheap and dirty decision by Tony DeAngelo, but he's going to pay for it. And I thought it was a shame because Tony DeAngelo gets a really bad rap, and anytime he makes any decision nowadays, people are going to jump on it and they're going to criticize him for it. And I just felt like he had really made some serious strides here this year, from being accountable to being a good teammate. We've talked to him in the practice locker room. I think he's a good guy, and I just think he's done all the right things for most of this season. And then he does something like that where it's going to make headlines because of his past and what he's done and some of the things he's said. And now it just gives people another reason really to, criticize him and lash out at him and question everything about him as a person, as a player.
Yeah.
I think frustration got the best of him, and he can't do it. It's inexcusable. I looked at it too, and I said to myself, that's bad. That's egregious.
Yeah, it's bad. And we all can agree it should not have been done. What I thought spoke volumes is Torts post game. We were thinking, oh man, here we go. Is he going to rip him for this? And really, he somewhat had his back and even said, I wish some guys took the passion of Tony DeAngelo and pocketed it. I thought that was a bigger message because he easily could have said he hurt the team. What are you doing? And if anything, he was harder on Joel Farabee and Travis Sanheim, who obviously did not commit near what Tony DeAngelo committed. But Torts is never going to fault a guy. He says it all the time with Travis Konechny for having passion. It's just Tony DeAngelo needs to figure out when I use that positively.
Exactly. And I wasn't super surprised when I heard John Tortorella's comments, because he does. He really likes Tony DeAngelo's fiery nature. He told me in the summer when I chatted with him on the phone, the Flyers were receiving a ton of criticism for going out and acquiring Tony DeAngelo. And he said, I want that personality. I think personality wins championships. And he said he'd rather have that than a choir boy. And that told me, I'm like,
choir boy. Nice.
I'm like, he likes Tony DeAngelo and the way he plays. Now, listen, there's a line to walk. And he did admit that post game is that you can't go too far. That was going too far. But perhaps he wants to see some of that fire from some of his other players. I don't think that's a terrible thing.
No.
I think he does want Travis Sanheim to play with more of an edge because he's a nice guy. And he even admitted Travis Sanheim's a nice guy, but sometimes you want guys to not be nice on the ice. You want them to play. And perhaps that's what he's looking, out of him. But Tony DeAngelo will be out 2 games. I'm assuming they'll just keep the same lineup, but they'll have to play a forward now, Ashlyn, because they were going with 11 forwards, 7D. Now they'll have 6D, and some forward will have to come in. I'm guessing it might be Kiefer Bellows, but we'll see. Who do you think could draw in there?
Yeah, that makes most sense. And just Torts it's clear doesn't want to have to do that. I mean, look at the second period when they were playing basically 9 forwards. So yeah, his hand's going to be forced there. Yeah. And it's already intriguing, the 11 forwards and 7D. So this maybe spark something we aren't predicting is the only good thing that could come from this. We'll see.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that more. But first, catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone, including a great sports book. Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And speaking of, we are live here at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. Plenty of folks here watching, the conference tournaments for basketball, some soccer. So a lot of fun things going on in sports 24/7. And I think this is a good place to come watch it.
Yeah.
But Ashlyn, a big topic that I feel like I've been getting tweets about it. Why are the Flyers playing 11 forwards, 7D? It's almost an indictment on Kiefer Bellows. I just think Tortorella is not very high on him, and he
doesn't trust him.
Refuses to play him. I'm not sure I agree with that. I feel like he hasn't gotten a real chance, but perhaps something's there where Tortorella doesn't trust him. Do you feel like this is sustainable? Can you keep playing 11 forwards and 7D? You feel like the Flyers need to eventually go back to the traditional way of playing?
I think I wouldn't be surprised if they do this the rest of the year. Yeah. No, you can't build your team around playing 11 forwards and 7D, but I wouldn't be surprised if I just don't think Torts cares. And I think Torts wants to put the best players he feels like are on the ice. And if that means 7 defensemen, that's what it means. And especially you would think with these last 18 games where he was I want to see what we have. I want to give young guys opportunities. I want to give guys that haven't got playing time a chance. You would think that would mean Kiefer Bellows, and it hasn't. So that speaks volumes to me that Torts isn't going to play guys he doesn't trust in situations. So I think like Nolan Tippett's a great example. Look at the ice time he's getting. This is a guy that's getting full advantage of these last 18 games. So I wouldn't be surprised if they roll with this the last 18 games, but my gosh, this can't be a blueprint going forward that you can follow. That's for sure.
I know past coaches I've talked to, they do not like playing 11 forward 7D. They said it's pretty tricky. Like it just complicates things. But I agree. I think he understands they have to play games 2-1, 3-2, and what's a better defensive lineup? Probably putting Justin Braun in there over Kiefer Bellows.
Right.
Bellows is kind of known for his offensive upside. He's got a nice shot, but can he trust Bellows on a fourth line? I'm not sure. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's a fourth line player, and he's probably right now maybe not deserving of playing on the top 9. So, but yeah, I just don't think it's sustainable. I think eventually you got to look, get back to playing the traditional way of 12-6. Find a solution. Find someone that you think fits in your forward group, and
my gosh, you got to score more goals.
Score more goals.
Hey, Cocky, got to need more forwards to score more goals.
Exactly. It's not
bring a guy in.
It's not rocket science. Prevent goals and score goals.
Yeah.
And what did Tortorella say last night? He's like, we can't freaking score a goal. I think he said.
He did. Yeah.
So
we all were thinking it, and he said it.
They really are fighting it offensively. That's when you knew when they went down big to Tampa. They lost 5-2 to the Lightning last night amid all the drama. They beat the Red Wings on Sunday 3-1, so they didn't score a ton, but they found a way to defensively shore things up. But yeah, they're just not scoring goals. And when they went down 3-1, 4-1, you just knew that game was over.
It's over. Yeah. If the other team's going to score 3 goals, sadly the Flyers can't have that offensive firepower, and that's when they're shooting themselves in the foot. And no wonder the frustration's there, and no wonder they're struggling the way they are, because you can't win like that. That streak in January, they were consistently, putting up points, but we knew it wasn't sustainable. You can only play like that for so long, where you have the pressure, especially for Carter Hart. My gosh, if I let up 3 goals, we're done for.
Yeah. Yeah. He's playing with so much pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah.
It's just not the right way for a 24-year-old goalie to play. To his credit, he's kept them in games and he's won them a lot of games, and they've been better. Don't get me wrong. They've been better for Carter Hart this year, but still, they're in a dogfight to score a goal, and that's still a tough way to play for a goalie.
Yeah.
And one thing with 11-7, Ashlyn, is Tortorella said he does it sometimes in part because he wants to play Nolan Tippett more. I feel like Tippett's just been one of their biggest positives. He's looking like he could be a real big-time player. Originally, at first, I thought maybe a third-line guy to score 20 goals. He's looking like a top-6 guy, maybe even a first-line player. Has he been one of the guys that just catches your eye every time you watch?
I think he's the only positive this past couple of weeks. And JJ and Jonesy went as far to say that they think he's first line. They think he's shown that the past couple of weeks. And he's logging massive ice time, averaging 22 minutes the past couple of games. And I love, we talked to Tippett a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about him getting more ice time. And he said, well, yeah, this is a no-brainer that Torts is trusting me with this time. And it's giving me more confidence because everyone is saying they believe in me to play these type of minutes. So Tippett, to me, the ceiling is so high to him. And if anything, for Tippett, if he can end this year, consistently playing the way he has, okay, well, at least his arrow is pointing up, and you can at least build around that. Where Tippett, to me, he's the storyline of this past month so far.
Yeah, and there was a lot of heat at the trade deadline, a lot of criticism for general manager Chuck Fletcher. But hey, one trade he can absolutely say he did pretty well and was the Claude Giroux trade last year, getting a future first-round pick and a player, Nolan Tippett, who's playing well and looking like a piece, looking like almost an untouchable right now because they value him that much. Ashlyn, I think this road trip, again, you're going to learn a lot about the Flyers. Like, I don't think it's boring to me. To me, the games might not have meaning for a playoff race, but you go into environments like Carolina coming up here on Thursday, a game we will have on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Ashlyn will have pre- and post-game live. You're going to learn about the Flyers. Like, how far off are they? Can their younger players play in these environments? Do you feel like you're going to see something here from the Flyers moving forward?
Yeah, and you see, I keep going back to the pride thing and Tort saying who's going to be on this bus in Philadelphia. I love that analogy. Who's in the seats? And he keeps talking about subtracting first. So it's no secret there's pressure on these guys, and there should be. You're playing for your jobs, you're playing for your contracts, you're playing to stay here in Philadelphia. And I do think, Scott, Al, and I talk about it all the time. There's going to have to be a ton of moving pieces here of how you're going to reevaluate this roster, because it's not working. You can't keep it the way it is. And Scott was talking about it last night. He's like, I know these guys, I'm friends with these guys, but this can't be sustainable. You can't just keep this roster and think it's going to be better next year. You're going to have to figure it out. So there's a ton of pressure in that storyline. My gosh, that's like headline TV of they're fighting for their jobs here, because Torts doesn't owe them anything. He's going to be here and he's going to decide who's here. So you better please him. You better impress him these last 18 games.
Yeah, last summer, the Flyers didn't do a whole lot in terms of shaking up their roster, but I think part of that was because they have a first-year head coach, and they knew they weren't going to win this year. They had injuries. So a lot of it was, let's give our young players a chance to play, see where it goes. I think this summer could be a lot different. It could be some big decisions, some tough decisions.
You hope so. It has to be.
It has to be because as we know, the management and this regime has come under some fire for perhaps the lack of aggressiveness in the summer and at the trade deadline. And I think just one of the biggest storylines that right off the hop against the Hurricanes will be Joel Farabee and Travis Sanheim.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of role do they play? How do they respond? Is that going to be one of the biggest things you're watching early in that first period?
I hope Joel Farabee gets a goal. Just please. Like, I see him. He's trying. I'm like, come on. Like, we all want it for him because if anything, I've appreciated how he's responded in this situation where very easily could he have just ridden off into the sunset and skated around and just not have been seen. But he has been seen these past couple of games. So I credit him that he's not okay with this. So yeah, we're all pulling for him, especially those scoring chances a couple games ago. It was like we were like sitting on the edge of our seats hoping it would happen for him because you just want this 23 game streak to break for him.
Yeah, the human element you feel for the kid.
Yeah.
You forget he's only 22 and he's very much a piece of the future. And I hope people are patient with him because I just think the sky's the limit for him. And like you said, coming off the injury, he's clearly dealing with it. But to his credit, hasn't made excuses about it.
Yeah.
Says he needs to be better. I don't think you always see that kind of maturity from a kid his age. He very much gets it. And I think be patient, see how he does over these final stretch of games. And I agree. I think it could do wonders for his confidence. If he gets a couple and at least feels like he was himself again the rest of the way, could help him going into the summer.
Yes, you hope so.
Yeah. But plenty to watch. The Flyers road trip continues Thursday, as I mentioned, against the Hurricanes. Ashlyn will have pre- and post-game live for us on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And then the team is on a national broadcast on Saturday against the Penguins in the afternoon. So a lot more to evaluate, a lot more to analyze. We'll have it all right here. Ashlyn, thank you so much. Great to see you. Great chatting with you. A big thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer and guru. And Flyers fans, of course, as always, thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. Wherever you get your Flyers podcast, please rate and listen. And we can't wait to talk to you next time.